I was telling AJ that I can't talk about anything but Don Jr.
But I was explaining that BICRA is actually very important.
What the fuck is BICRA?
The Better Care Reconciliation Act? Is that what it is, AJ?
It's got a new name.
No, it used to be called something else. It was called the AHCA.
The House bill was called the AHCA.
So what is BICRA?
It's the Senate bill.
Oh, I've already forgotten about the House bill. I stopped thinking about the House bill the minute President Trump called it a mean bill. And I said, well, then I don't need to care about it. It's mean. We don't do mean things. I know you guys are going to insist that we talk about health care and maybe some other things and do sidebars and things of that nature. And I'm going to try, but I'm just saying that I'm not sure I can talk about anything other than Don Jr.
Maybe your sidebar can be Don Jr.
Let's start with Don Jr. and then let's see if I can convince you to talk about BICRA.
Okay, that's good. That's good. I feel like a 4-year-old right now, being tempted with French fries, and then being like, let's start with French fries. Maybe I can convince you to eat spinach in 2 minutes. Although 4-year-old me loves spinach, so
the Don Jr. Donald J. Trump Jr.
The prodigal son, Trump's favorite son.
So he. Over the course of the last 3 days, we're recording on Tuesday, July 11th. Over the course of the last 3 days,
that's important because by the time we release this episode, we may be a territory of Russia. So, in which point this entire thing will be moot, right? It'll be totally okay.
Well, yeah. So Don Jr. went from not recalling a meeting that he had with a Russian lawyer to recalling the meeting, but saying they only talked about adoption programs. Then he said the meeting was called because the person wanted to offer him incriminating evidence about Hillary Clinton. And then finally it came to light that the person who introduced him to this person told him that this meeting was part of...
Can I read the quote, AJ? Can I read the quote?
Yeah, go for it.
So... this is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. 5 minutes after that, Don Jr. replied, "If it's what you say, I love it, especially later in the summer." And then he arranged to have... So the timeline on this is pretty interesting because Don Jr. gets this email on June 3rd, 2016. Less than a week later, this Russian lawyer is meeting with Don Jr., Paul Manafort, and Jared Kushner. Arguably the three most powerful people in the Trump campaign.
Ruchit, can I say I think you're missing the most important part of that email?
Oh, yeah. What am I missing?
The subject line.
What's the subject line?
Forward, FW in all caps, : space, Russia, Clinton, private and confidential.
He posted it on Twitter.
So can I give you guys one plausible scenario where Don Jr. is innocent?
Oh, okay. This is good because I think we're going to hear a lot of these plausible scenarios. So I think it's incumbent upon us to give as many scenarios as we can think of to our listeners. Go, right. Tom.
So for this, you're going to have to use a little imagination. I want you guys
Do our readers need to close their eyes?
Yes, close their eyes.
Okay. Do our readers need to do an om? Can we do an om for Don Jr.?
Yeah, maybe just to start out. Go ahead.
Okay. Om.
Okay, so now eyes are closed.
Okay, eyes are closed.
We're imagining a elderly white grandmother. She's got some spectacles on. They're reading glasses, right?
Does she have white hair, brown hair? What's the hair color?
She's got stark white hair. She's old.
Okay.
She's sitting down at her computer.
Okay.
It's a Windows computer.
Okay.
Obviously. She doesn't quite know how to work the emails, but she gets on it because she wants to talk to her grandchildren, right?
Okay.
And she gets an email.
Oh.
Its subject line is forward, Russia, Clinton private and confidential. Okay?
Okay.
Now, isn't that a plausible scenario? Like, you could imagine a million old grandmothers getting a forward just like this that says Russia, Clinton, private and confidential. And then, like, at the end of that email saying, if you don't forward this email to 10 of your friends, you're going to die in a horrible fire. I think that's what maybe Don Jr. was tricked. He must get a lot of emails like this too. You know?
Can I tell you something important?
What?
The email he received, the Ray line just says Russia, Clinton, private and confidential. Do you know why it says forward?
Why?
In the screenshots he posted?
Did he forward it to someone?
He forwarded it to Jared
himself?
Kushner and Paul Manafort.
So the next time Jared Kushner or his representatives tell you he had nothing to do with Russia, if anything was happening with Russia, he had no knowledge of anything to do with Russia.
Apparently, Manafort's defense is he didn't read the entire thread that was forwarded to him before attending the meeting.
I think that's pretty good, actually, because, you know, I get invited to a lot of meetings, as I know all of you guys do. And I can't say that if somebody tells me, hey, I need you at this meeting, you just kind of show up at the meeting. You don't always read everything that's attached. You know, you don't read everything that's in the – it's in the, you know, maybe – because in this situation, you know, you're Paul Manafort. You're very busy. You're the campaign manager, for God's sake, you know. You've just gotten –
So he was still the campaign manager at the time.
Oh,
they
yeah.
hadn't fired him yet?
No. They didn't fire him until the end of August.
This was like right around the convention.
So
this is when Manafort was still like
he was needed.
Was still wrangling delegates just in case they tried to like do something on the floor.
Yeah. No, Trump had just won the Republican nomination. He had just gotten done calling Ted Cruz's father the murderer of John F. Kennedy. And after having done that, his son thought, well, let me see what I can do, you know? Here's another thing that I thought was interesting about the email. I can also send this info to your father via Rona. I don't know who Rona is, but as ultra...
Rona is Donald Trump's executive assistant.
Ah, okay.
She's been working for Trump for like decades.
So I think it seems clear that Rona will be deposed.
You know how at a law firm, like the senior partner secretary is actually one of the most powerful people?
Totally. That's everywhere,
man. So that's Rona.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Rona is definitely going to get she's going to be testifying in front of Bob Mueller. I mean, she's going to get deposed by Bob Mueller. Like, can we okay, so Rob Goldstone, who is a entertainer and agent.
He's a publicist. He's a publicist for the son of the oligarch that wanted the meeting set up.
So can I already preview my sidebar? Is it too early for me to talk about my sidebar?
Go for it.
My sidebar...
Wait, don't go for it. I take it back.
Okay. My sidebar has to do with Rob Goldstone.
Okay. Oh, I know what you're going to do. Okay. I'm going to cut this, though. We'll do it when you do
Okay, sounds good.
So what is the official everything we know about Donald J. Trump Jr. slant? What is the thing that we can talk about on this that no one else can talk about with near the competence that we can? Are you ready?
I got something actually that I did want to talk about regarding all these posts that are going up that this is a criminal violation, right?
Yeah.
That, you know, I think Vox had something.
A lot of people have had things.
Yeah, Election Law Blog, Vox, and Washington Post all had pretty decent articles about the legal ramifications, and I did put them in the Google Doc if you ever actually looked at the Google Doc.
Yeah. Well, what I wanted to say is I don't know if I buy into that quite yet. So the argument centers around this statute that makes it a crime to receive basically money from foreign donors when you're running for an elected office.
Or other assistance.
That's not quite what the law says.
Or other assistance.
It's not just to receive. So your formulation, I think, is wrong on a couple
Hold
points.
on.
First,
wait, let me finish. Let me finish.
Let me finish.
No, you interrupted me. Let me finish.
Yeah, but you said something that was wrong.
Well, you can correct him in a second, AJ.
I mean, that's not the point, right? The point is... so this law has this very specific language, which I guess we can talk about if AJ really wants to talk about it. So here we go. A foreign national shall not directly or indirectly make a contribution or donation of money or other thing of value or expressly or impliedly promise to make such a contribution or donation in connection with. And then there's another section that says you can't solicit that, right? That's what you were going to say. Right, AJ?
It was two things. It was one, that solicitation is a crime. It's not just receipt, but it's also anything of value.
Yes. Okay. So that's sort of the hook that these articles are saying. That what's happening here is the information on Clinton is something of value, right? That he is either accepting from a foreign national or soliciting from a foreign national, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I can sort of see that. Sure, that's a plausible argument, except for the fact that it comes in a phrase. It's money or other thing of value, right? So there's this canon of construction that says when you have sort of a list or a group of things, the general phrase that goes at the end of that list or group of things is to be interpreted in reference to the first things that come. So in this instance, the canon would say, look, the other thing of value that we're interpreting as a statutory matter has to be something like money. It has to have some relation to money. It can't just be...
So like hotel rooms.
Yeah, like hotel rooms. Or if I were to...
Something that is substitutable for
exactly.
money, right?
So like if I were to give you Bitcoin, Ruchit, or for example, if I were to give you a Fabergé egg that you can go and sell and you know what I mean? Like I think... my point is that, I don't think this is a slam dunk, okay? And I think that if this is all you have against the Trump campaign and this is the only law that you're bringing, I think you run a real risk that an appellate court, particularly one appointed by Donald J. Trump, might say, we're going to
and they wouldn't be
take
crazy.
A narrow reading. Yeah, and it wouldn't be crazy. It would be a very plausible reading, right? We're going to take a narrow reading of this statute. And there's also the other sort of reason why they might do it is the rule of lenity. In a criminal case, when you have an ambiguity, you're supposed to interpret the ambiguity in favor of the accused. In this case, Donald Trump Jr.
And I think part of that, Tom, is because the accused is thought to be a not necessarily a sophisticated person, which in this case would be obviously accurate.
You didn't read any of the links. You didn't read any of the links in the Google Doc.
I read the links.
Yeah, I read the Vox article.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with Tom on this.
Actually,
I think
so
this is kind of weak.
The election law blog article has two links. I'm going to copy them into the Slack. They're links. They're links from election law blog, but it goes into a decent amount of detail about the precedent on the anything of value, and basically the precedent says you're wrong. So there's a 2004 case.
Is it from the Supreme Court?
It's from the Federal Election Commission.
I don't think that's going to matter.
But hold on, is it from the federal? I mean, is it just like a finding from the FEC? Because that doesn't mean shit.
It does mean something.
No, not really.
Hold on. This is actually, I think AJ. I'm looking at this. This is actually from the District of New Jersey. But I think this one's on.
I copied two links in. Okay, so first, the Federal Election Commission in 2004 voted 5-1 to accept the General Counsel's finding that Grover Norquist's Americans for Tax Reform provided a thing of value to the Bush-Cheney campaign.
So I think that makes sense, actually.
The thing of value that they provided was a list of conservative activists in 37 states.
So that's something that can be sold for money, right?
Right.
So I think that's a key here. It's not clear to me that necessarily, like, if Donald Trump Jr. was to receive this information, it's not clear to me that this information, if the Russian lawyer had it, would have been something that you could have gone and sold for money.
Okay, yeah. So Rich, maybe you should click the link. The General Counsel found that this was a prohibited corporate contribution and that Bush-Cheney violated the law by failing to report it. It also found the list had so little value that the General Counsel did not recommend pursuing the matter further.
No, I'm reading that, but isn't that the...
So it can be of extraordinarily little value and still be a thing of value under the statute.
But yeah, I just don't know how important that's going to be, right? Like, we're talking about if this were to be taken all the way up to the Supreme Court, I don't think this is what would decide it. The Supreme Court's not going to be like, well, the FEC interpreted this regulation, so I guess that ends the story there.
So, okay, in District Court in New Jersey, in U.S. v. Menendez, which is the corruption case against New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez, anything of value is construed is defined broadly to include the value which the defendant subjectively attaches to the items received, and that is from the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, so AJ, the argument isn't that there are plausible interpretations either way. Right? The argument is what's going to happen if Kennedy resigns, Donald Trump appoints another justice on the Supreme Court, and this case is before that court.
No, I actually think that the argument is maybe a little bit broader than that, Tom. I think it's just that there is a reasonable interpretation that supports your view, AJ, but I think there's also probably a reasonable interpretation, a narrower interpretation.
It's a classic
but
ambiguity.
I think by the time you get to the Supreme Court, you're already screwed, right? So, like, Tom DeLay, who was in the GOP leadership in the mid-2000s, won his appeal at the Supreme Court of Texas, or the Court of Criminal Appeals in Texas. But by the time he won his appeal, he had already resigned from Congress, right? Like,
yeah, but you're assuming Donald Trump or Donald Trump Jr. have the shame that Tom DeLay has.
Listen, yeah. The other point that I would make is that, this is the Republican Party. Just give him 5-10 years. He'll be back.
No, I think you're probably right. I don't think that we have clear evidence that a crime was committed, but I do think that
Don Jr. is going to be tweeting this out, guys. Our show, he's going to be see 3 lawyers, many people think I committed no crime.
Everyone is saying on the podcast that Don Jr. didn't commit a crime. But here are the 2 things that are worth saying about this. The first thing is that Jared Kushner was forwarded this email, failed to disclose this meeting on a security clearance form, and is going to show up to work tomorrow and still have the highest security clearance. So the FBI said they only became aware of this news after the New York Times dug into the story, and I mean that seems to me that Jared Kushner disclosed it after he was caught and not before.
No. I'm not. Listen, he should have disclosed this meeting, period. But I think what I'm trying to say is that the New York Times got these emails before Don Jr. was sort of put them on the internet himself. And so my theory is that Jared gave them the emails.
Yeah, probably not.
I don't know,
think
dude.
So. I don't.
Yeah.
There's only 3 people on the email. There's Jared. I mean, there's 4, I guess. There's Rob Goldstone.
No, but there's like Don Jr.'s secretary, and there's like.
Are those people CC'd? Are you sure?
Well, it also could have turned up in a document hold, right? Like a litigation, like a litigation hold where you
totally.
You turn all your emails over to your lawyer when you, right? I mean, there are a lot of other people that could have had access to this email. The other thing is that
I think Don Jr. right now is busy deleting his emails. I guarantee you he's deleting his emails.
The reporter for the New York Times that broke the story said that he'd been working the story for over a year. And had been working for a year to obtain the email, and the New York Times only just obtained the email, right? So it sounds like the story got to the New York Times a long time before the New York Times obtained the email.
Yeah. I wish the New York Times would listen to our podcast and they would look at the time that Vladimir Putin was in New York City at the end of June when I saw him at the Lowe's Hotel. I wish they would just do that.
What episode number is that? Tom, what episode is that?
I don't know.
I'm re-referencing the time that I saw Vladimir Putin for purposes of the show notes and in the hopes that maybe the New York Times will take a look at that videotape and they'll know that Vladimir Putin was probably meeting with someone from the Trump campaign directly. And they would have known that a long time ago if they had just responded to my encrypted WhatsApp text.
That's good stuff.
But they didn't, And so here we are arguing about whether or not Don Jr. is going to jail or should go to jail.
He probably should, but he also probably will. I mean, there's. I would say that even in light of everything we know, the most likely outcome is that Donald Trump is president for 8 years, and that 8
years, 8 years,
8 years.
You think he'll win re-election in 2020?
Yeah, I do.
Wow,
guys, I have a real-time follow-up.
Yeah,
it was episode 17.
Oh,
in
good.
which you discussed seeing various Trump associates, including Vladimir Putin, at the Lowe's Hotel.
Episode 17 was actually one of our best episodes. Like, really a tour de force.
The
it
other
was
thing
about Bitcoin.
Yeah. Oh, was it? That's
Yes.
what we talked about. Oh, nice. So one other thing that's kind of interesting to me about this is that one of Don Jr.'s defenses is nothing came of it, and that was a waste of time. So what he's saying is if something had come of it, and if this lady had given him damaging information, being part of Russia and its government support for Mr. Trump, it would have ostensibly not been a waste of time. The other thing is all of the people that are defending Don Jr., and there do seem to be quite a few, who are saying this is much ado about nothing. Did they not understand like the concept of attempted murder, attempted assault, attempted battery, attempted theft? Like just because you don't succeed doesn't mean like, Tom, I shot at you, but I didn't hit you, so it wasn't murder, and I guess I'm okay. Like what the hell,
Yeah, dude, it doesn't work like that.
I also liked, here's another unique thing insight I can provide, because I actually read the fine text, the fine print. This iPhone speaks many languages. Did you see that?
That was the Goldstone signature at the bottom
Rob
of his emails.
Goldstone.
His iPhone speaks many languages.
Yeah.
He had Siri on the international setting.
Very nice. Let's see what else. And then they had some meeting got moved to. It's just great. It's great that we're seeing these emails, and I think Don Jr. is probably going to say he didn't read the part about Russia. Jared's going to say he didn't read the email at all. Paul Manafort's already said that, right?
It would be ironic if emails are what brought down the Trump administration.
I think the only thing more ironic would be if we can't find a birth certificate. If we could somehow weave that into a
the
story.
election was fundamentally about having sound IT practices. I mean, that was the issue put to the American people.
Who has better IT practices, the guy that doesn't use email or the lady that did? I don't know, man. I like to think, and maybe I'm just being delusional, I think this is the beginning of the end.
I think you're delusional.
You've been saying that for years.
Dude, I have not been saying it for years.
Well, so this is a good segue. Why is this delusional? Because the congressional Republicans haven't turned on Trump yet. Right? I mean, this is all sort of academic as long as there's going to be a Republican majority in the House. Because there's no sign that the congressional Republicans have any interest in actually investigating Trump. Between putting Chaffetz and Nunes in charge of these investigations that they don't actually do anything on, and between voting for all of Trump's legislation and every chance they get. I mean, what is the meaningful difference between the congressional Republicans and Trump? Like, where does Trump feel the effects of these scandals?
It can only happen if they start turning on him. I agree. I guess I'm betting that this is it.
Yeah, Ruchit, you're just you're underestimating the value of tax cuts.
I think they're finally starting to see that they're not going to get tax cuts. They're not going to get tax cuts as long as this just keeps on going. And it is going to keep on going.
There's a 98% chance they get tax reform after the summer, right? The reason why they're doing healthcare first and then tax reform later is that they're definitely going to get tax reform. Like, Americans will never turn down a tax cut.
Well, not they may not get tax reform if they're busy investigating this, and this is all that's in the news.
Well, that's why they're going to spend their time not investigating this.
Well, I mean, there's Bob Mueller, there's the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is investigating this. So I agree on the House. The House is worthless, but
well, the House also has the better chance of flipping.
That's true. So I mean, anyway, The Trump family has not paid any consequences for their many misdeeds for 40 years, and I think that's going to start changing.
Okay, here's what I propose.
What do you propose?
We talk about Bikra, then we talk about a mystery topic.
Is that a new cryptocurrency?
Yeah, it's a new cryptocurrency, Richard. Make sure you get it in your coin locker. Okay. Then we have a mystery topic that I just received by text message, and then we do sidebars.
Who texted it to you?
So today, some things happened on Bikra. What happened on Bikra today? And again, a reminder to our audience, it's July 11th.
Okay, so Bikra stands for the BICRA stands for the Better Care Reconciliation Act. This is a bill working its way through the Senate. And by I mean working its way in the loosest popular terms, because there isn't even the pretense of procedural formality in this. So the bill is supposed to be the Senate companion bill to the AHCA. The AHCA is the American Health Care Act that came out of the House. This is the bill that would cause 23 million people fewer to have insurance relative to the baseline under existing law. That's the AHCA. The BCRA is still somewhat inchoate. The most recent CBO score of the most recent draft has the BCRA with only 22 million uninsured instead of 23 million additional uninsured relative to baseline under existing law. And the key features of the BCRA is that it's a huge tax cut for the wealthy, funded by huge cuts to Medicaid spending relative to...
I thought that huge tax cut part just
under
changed.
existing law. What's that?
I thought the huge tax cut part just changed.
So the most talked about portion of BICRA is this 3.5% tax on investment income over $250,000, but that's only about $150 billion of the $700 or $800 billion of tax cuts in the bill.
But isn't that the only tax cut that's like going directly to the richer folks?
Why don't we go to the CBO score?
Because I thought the rest of the taxes were like the medical device tax and like a bunch of other stuff like that.
Why don't we go to the CBO score?
Dude, that's why I'm asking you, dude. You're the BICRA expert. Remember when I said I can't talk about anything other than Don Jr., and here I am talking about things not Don Jr.?
Okay.
Unless Don Jr. wrote some emails on this topic.
Here's what the CBO says about BICRA. It would reduce relative to existing baselines. This is a really important talking point before I tell you what the CBO says. So what Republicans have been saying is, Medicaid spending is projected to increase over the next 10 years. And that's true, but it's projected to increase by quite a bit over the next 10 years, whereas under BICRA, it would increase by about $70 billion. So that's a $772 billion tax cut relative to existing law over the next 10 years. Spending cut. So Medicaid would decrease $772 billion. Reduce subsidies and tax credits for people purchasing insurance on the exchanges would decrease by $408 billion. Funding to states and insurers would increase by $107 billion. The penalty payments, by eliminating the individual mandate, so the individual mandate is the form of a tax penalty that is assessed on your income tax if you fail to obtain insurance, and so that would be $210 billion of tax cuts there. So that genuinely probably would go to lower income people. And then the repeal or delay of taxes on high income people, fees imposed on manufacturers, excise taxes enacted under the ACA adds up to $541 billion. So of the $541 billion of non individual mandate taxes, there's $541 billion of tax cuts in BICRA, and removing the 3.5% tax on investment coverage would, wait for it, let me see what the CBO says. I can edit this out anyway. So repeal of the net investment tax is only $172 billion of the over $500 billion of tax cuts in the bill. So the sort of shell game here, like, we're going to repeal or we're going to modify one of the tax cuts, which I don't think they've even actually committed to at this point. But the suggestion is that it would be easier to get some Republicans to vote for the bill if it didn't have the investment tax cuts, right? That's about a third of the overall tax cuts in the bill. So the idea that the Republicans are willing to walk away from their tax cuts is sort of, it's
some tax cuts, AJ. It's real money, 170 some odd billion.
We're just going to have to agree. I agree. It is some tax cuts.
So it's a bunch of tax cuts still, but the investment income part seems to be off the table. So that's one component of what's changing.
The investment tax cut seems to be a negotiating point that may help get your like Rob Portman or your Shelley Moore Capito's on board.
So that's, yeah, so, okay, so maybe it's off the table, maybe it's not. It's at least up for debate, whereas the other ones seem to be not up for debate right now. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. So so there's that component. What else happened on Bikra today or in the last like couple of days that our listeners need to know about?
Okay. So Republicans had planned to vote on the bill before the July 4th recess, and then they didn't, because the bill wouldn't have passed. There were more than 3 senators against the bill, and they can only afford to lose 3. Right now, it seems like the best estimate is that there are 9 senators, Republican senators, that have made statements indicating they're against the bill as presently drafted. The objections sort of come from 3 camps. There's like the extreme libertarian wing, so your Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ted Cruz wing, and they want the bill to be even more conservative. Then you've got sort of there's this weird alliance between Shelley Moore Capito and Rob Portman, and they seem to be hemming and hawing, but for the most part, it seems like they can be bought off with a small amount of spending on opioid addiction. The amount of money that it sounds like they can be bought for is actually less than the overall cuts to the kind of spending that could help with opioid addiction, including Medicaid programs that help with opioid addiction. So they're still willing to do a net disservice to their constituents, but it does seem like the appearance of being bought
is helpful for them on this topic.
It would help get them on the bill. And then the last camp is people that are just not willing to be responsible for 20 million Americans not having health insurance. And that camp comes from a few corners. You've got Heller out in New Mexico.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he and Governor Sandoval, who's also a Republican, did a joint press conference earlier in the month. And at that press conference, Heller committed himself fairly firmly to being opposed to anything that undoes the Medicaid expansion, which I mean, he went out and did a joint press conference with the governor of his state. That's sort of a big commitment to have to walk back. You also have people like Susan Collins in Maine, who's seems to be a hard no. She doesn't seem to be gettable, and she's made similar statements about how she just will not be responsible for rolling back the Medicaid expansion. And then you've got just sort of another mix of senators. Both the senators from Louisiana, Cassidy and Kennedy, have sort of been complaining in the last couple days about the process, about how they're not really privy to what the GOP leadership want to do with the bill, and that they're sort of skeptical that Bikra can pass the Senate. But that doesn't put them firmly in the no camp. It just puts them in people who have seen an opening to express some of their discontent.
So what's the bottom line?
So the bottom line, I think, is that you would still have to say Bikra could pass the Senate. I mean, Bikra is far from dead. They can only afford to lose 3 senators, and I think that there are 2 senators that are just not gettable, and that would be Heller and Collins. And so it only takes 1 more senator to kill the bill. Do I think that there's really any chance that Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and Mike Lee actually don't vote for the bill? No. I mean, I think when it comes down to it, they'll vote to repeal the Medicaid expansion. But, do I think someone else is gettable, like Capito, Lisa Murkowski, Rob Portman? Yeah. I mean, I think that there is a meaningful chance that the bill doesn't pass. So there have been a couple proposals about what to do to get more senators on board. Ted Cruz has a proposal that is fairly terrible. I think is the nicest way to put it. Basically, his idea is that the core framework of the ACA would remain intact. It would become much less generous. Under the current bill, the core framework of the ACA would remain intact. It would be much less generous to people who need to obtain insurance, and that's why 22 million fewer people would have insurance. But fundamentally, you would still have you would still have the marketplaces. You would still have essential health benefits, and states can opt out of essential health benefits. But for the most part, there's still this framework in the conceptual sense that, there are marketplaces where the only plans that can be sold are decent plans, the kind of plans that people actually want to get, right? You don't have any of these sort of policies that are insurance in name only, right? Where you have insanely high deductibles and lifetime limits and things like that, where you sort of have health insurance only in the nominal sense. And so I think in the conservative camp, Mike Lee and Ted Cruz in particular are sort of skeptical that states are really going to opt out of having these essential benefits packages be required by law. And so they want to opt out all of the states by law. And so the idea is that if an insurer is on an exchange and sells at least one compliant plan under the core essential benefits package that the ACA guarantees to people who have insurance, as long as they have one compliant plan, they're also free to sell non-compliant plans in the state. So what does that do? You have this sort of
that's AJ. Sorry, let me interrupt you for a second, just to break it up, dude, for our listeners. That sounded like an interesting proposal to me, like on its face, and I could see how
it's a terrible proposal.
Well, but yeah. So on its face, that sounds interesting, right? And I think one of the things that I thought we'd talk about a little bit is sort of breaking down some of the spin that we're seeing and why that spin. So if you're a listener and you've been reading about this and you've seen Ted Cruz and Mike Lee's proposal that says, hey, insurers can sell two types of plans, one that comply with Obamacare and ones that don't. And people can just buy whatever they want to buy. What's wrong with that? And that sounds good, but there's some like practical implications about healthcare that make it different from like saying, oh, what's wrong with me buying like a 16 gigabit iPhone versus like a 32 gig, right?
Right.
And talk about that.
Okay, so in the immortal words of John Roberts, the ACA is a three-legged stool. The three legs are
Was that before or after he chopped down one of the legs?
Well, that's a good
Actually,
point.
he kept all the legs.
No.
No. Medicaid wasn't one of the legs.
It actually is a component of one of
Yeah, it was important.
But not according to him.
Right. I mean, it's a problem. So in broad terms, there are three really important things the ACA does, and each one begets the next. So the idea is that everybody can get health insurance, and that has two components. There's community rating, which is that everybody is part of one big risk pool, right? So at your employer, you have a group health insurance plan. The entire group is rated as a group, right? So community rating would turn the entire individual healthcare market in the state into one group. And guaranteed issue. No one can be denied insurance. So everybody, you don't have different risk pools. You don't have a risk pool for pre-existing conditions and a risk pool for healthy people. There's one risk pool with one set of community ratings, which means that to a certain extent, healthy people have to subsidize sick people. And you've got guaranteed issue. Sick people can't be denied insurance for their pre-existing condition. They can't have lifetime limits and things like that. Okay. So the next component is if sick people with pre-existing conditions have to be issued health insurance and they have to all go into one risk pool, they can't go into their own separate risk pool, then you need to have healthy people in the same risk pool to subsidize the sick people. And that's what the individual mandate does. The individual mandate says people have to get insurance even if they're healthy and don't need it. Even if you don't feel like you're going to have a health event, if you're young and in your 20s and you're, whatever it is, you have to join the risk pool so that you can bring down the average level of risk in the risk pool. Okay. So if people have to buy insurance, what happens if they can't afford insurance? That's the third leg of the stool. The third leg of the stool is that everybody can afford insurance. So everybody can get insurance, everyone has to get insurance, and everyone can afford insurance. The way that they make insurance affordable is that up to about, I think it's like 130% of the poverty line, you qualify for Medicaid. And this is a huge expansion of Medicaid. The original purpose of Medicaid was mostly to do with like children and pregnant women and people with disabilities. And this is a huge expansion of Medicaid to say we're going to cover sick, poor, young, old, up to 130% of the poverty line. Above that level, the way that people can afford insurance is a system of tax credits. So the tax credits are designed proportionally to your income, the idea is that there's a proportion of your income beyond which you shouldn't be expected to pay for health insurance. So any premiums in excess of a certain percentage of your income are covered entirely by these refundable tax credits. And so those are the three legs of the stool. And anything that undermines any of the three legs causes the whole thing to topple over. So here's what Ted Cruz's thing does. Ted Cruz gets rid of community rating. You now have two risk pools. You have people who want to get subprime or sub-bronze. The lowest level ACA compliant plan is a bronze plan. So if you talk about sub-bronze plans, that would form one risk pool. It would be the non-exchange risk pool, and then you'd have the exchange risk pool. So the only people who would continue to buy insurance on the exchange are the people who really need ACA compliant plans. And anyone who's healthy enough to think they can get by would buy these much cheaper subprime plans. And now you have two risk pools. And when healthy people get out of the risk pool, the cost for the sick people that remain skyrocket.
And then you have a death spiral.
So it would invite price discrimination in a way that is totally objectionable. That was a very long explanation.
It was.
Did it all make sense?
It did make sense to me. I think that the Cliff Notes, as I saw it, was if you put all the healthy people in one pool and all the sick people in the other one, the cost of insurance for all the sick people is going to be like extremely high, which if you're healthy and plan to be healthy and will always be healthy for your entire life, which means you'll never get cancer, you'll never get heart disease, you'll never get diabetes, and you can just kind of guarantee that for the course of your life, and you're confident with that, then I guess that's okay. But if you are worried that maybe I read some good posts about this, or just some good headlines about it, I guess, which was more just the if you think you might get sick or old at any point in your life, this could be problematic for you.
So John Cornyn, Senator Cornyn has these talking points about how the CBO score is being misreported because of the 22 million people who wouldn't have insurance. Tons of these people are people who would be choosing not to have insurance, and they're pointing to, for example, Cornyn wasn't talking specifically about Ted Cruz's proposal, but just to use Ted Cruz's proposal as a hypothetical, these people who are relatively healthy and confident in their prospects, who would be buying subprime insurance plans that are not ACA compliant, that's just more freedom. That's just more products for people to choose from. And for the ACA to take options off the table is just not consistent with free market principles, right? So you can see where Ted Cruz is coming from. When conservatives and the Freedom Caucus, when people like Massey and Rand Paul and Mike Lee say that the AHCA and BICRA fundamentally keeps the core structure of Obamacare, what they're saying is that people don't have a choice but to join the one community risk pool, right? And so anything that lets people opt out of the community risk pool basically lets young and healthy people out of having to help out old sick people.
Well, I think the other part of this that's always been hard for me, or maybe this is just how I think about it, but it's just that we can't have a society that both at one point does not give or require everyone to have health insurance and also does not deny emergency care to someone when they're in need, right? If we want to have one, we kind of have to have the other, or else we have like a completely dysfunctional like healthcare market, because people are still going to go to the ER.
Wasn't that the situation before the ACA?
Yeah, it was. It was the situation before the ACA, I think, and it was the situation with like regard to medical bankruptcies and
right. But the argument
like
that the Democrats made during the 2008 campaign is that you're going to have to pay for sick people sooner or later. You either have to pay for them when they go to the ER, or you pay for them to get health insurance. But it's not like you're going to opt out of paying for poor people with low incomes or sick people with low
I think
incomes.
Actually there's a broader principle here, is that, which is broadly speaking, you can't opt out of that. You can't opt out of paying for the effects of people being poor, frankly, whether that's healthcare or lack of education or lack of economic opportunity. You can say, keep my taxes low, which is a fair point, and I like my taxes low as much as anybody else. But if we don't fund the schools, those kids are going to have less opportunity. And that less opportunity may mean that some of them end up going to jail. It may mean they're not able to achieve their full potential, but it's going to cost society. And I think that's the premise that I think we have to sort of abandon, is this idea that there's no cost to society and no cost to you as a taxpayer just because you didn't directly pay a tax.
So liberals, like the left got over that conceit in like the mid 90s, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe our audience isn't the person to say that to. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, you're right, but it just like should be so blisteringly obvious to anyone who's really thought about it.
I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily blisteringly obvious, right? Like there are all kinds of things that we don't see. They're not in front of our faces. You know what I mean? Especially if they're things that are like 20, 30-year phenomena, right? So,
well, also remember this is the same audience that needed to have explained to them that roads were built by governments and you use roads to, do things, go places.
Yeah,
and you like that whole you didn't build that fiasco. You remember that?
Yeah, I mean, what Obama was saying specifically is that you didn't build the internet, which is true. Like you didn't build the internet. If you have a business that depends on the internet, if you run an e-commerce website, if you make widgets that you sell on the internet, then you didn't make the infrastructure that you depend on for your business.
Well, I mean, listen, like I think there was a societal contribution to everything, but it is largely about a balance, right? We got to find a balance. I mean, maybe I'm just sort of saying a bunch of aphorisms and things like that, or platitudes. Aphorisms isn't the right word, but I think it's not an either or, but I think it also starts with recognizing that we're paying the cost. Like that has to be something that we recognize. We're paying the cost if kids grow up to go to prison instead of, going to a good school that we could have put them in beforehand.
So the good news about this Ted Cruz amendment is that the GOP leadership didn't even submit it in full to the CBO, so it's probably not going to get a CBO score in time for the vote. And Ted Cruz blamed McConnell, and McConnell blamed Cruz, and there's a good Politico article about it.
This is like as a sidebar why it matters to be like a decent human being to your colleagues. And you can't just be a dick 99% of the time, and then once in a while have something that maybe people in your caucus are inclined to support, but people don't forget if you've been a dick nonstop for 4 years. So
yeah,
that's
the chapter in Al Franken's book about Ted Cruz is very satisfying. Do
you think we could interview Al Franken?
God, I would love that.
I think we need to interview Al Franken.
There's one more wrinkle about this, the way that Republicans chip away at community rating. There's an article today in Vox. I know that like Vox sort of is what Vox is. Sarah Cliff is like excellent. Cut that. I mean, I don't care. I don't know. Sarah Cliff is excellent. She's probably one of the best writers on healthcare. And so there's this little notice provision in BICRA as drafted. I mean, not with the Ted Cruz amendment, but it basically lets self-employed people buy non-ACA compliant plans, and so it basically takes a fairly decent chunk of the individual market, and there's already a Ted Cruz style amendment that applies for them. So it's not just that insurers can sell any non-compliant plan broadly on the individual market, but the plans available on the group market. So the kind of plans that your employer gets for you. You work for Chase Bank, and Chase Bank is buying health insurance for tens of thousands of people, all as one group rating. So the kind of terms and conditions that apply to those plans would be available to small business owners and self-employed people, and those people, those sort of group plans are not subject to the essential health benefits package under the ACA.
This has made me think that I think our next episode needs to be about the CFPB's consumer arbitration rule.
Anyway, but this is what Republicans are buying by propping up the Trump administration.
I just think they don't care that much anymore, dude. I feel like this is just is it worth it? I mean, are they just going to it's interesting. Typically, you don't have politicians so willing to commit political self-suicide, right? And so
it's not self-suicide.
Yeah, but they're banking that it's not. Right?
I know. But, everything they do that's with Donald Trump, I think is going to end up being political suicide. And then when you add on top of that, enacting laws that are broadly unpopular, that touch Medicaid. I mean, there's a reason like Medicaid and Social Security and Medicare have been considered like the fourth rail or the third rail or whatever the phrase is of American politics. You know, like tons and tons of people get benefits through these programs. I just don't know how it's going to work out for them. I guess time will tell, but
put most charitably, they're probably screwed either way. I mean, I think the damage that Trump has done to the party maybe irreversible at this point, and the best thing they can do is get whatever tax cuts they can before the other shoe drops.
Yeah, maybe. I wish they would move on to tax reform. I wish they would just forget about all this stuff, and then there could be some real stuff that we do on taxes. You know, we could like root out all the exemptions in the code. We could lower the corporate tax rate. I'm in, dude.
Oh my God.
I'm in for simplifying the tax code.
Oh my God. Is there any alternative to having to relive the Romney campaign live on the show?
No.
Tom, can you like turn off Ruchit's microphone?
I haven't been listening for the last 30 minutes.
Oh, good.
Dude.
Neither have I.
Dude, I think it's going to be good. I think tax reform could be good. It could actually be something that we can be proud of.
All right. My friend texted me.
I think AJ's response to this is like the only tax reform he'll be proud of is if taxes are higher at the end of it.
No, I don't think taxes have to be higher, but I think they should have a more egalitarian distribution. And I think the things that you can buy with fairly modest tax increases are like sort of extraordinary, right? So just taking 3.5% of investment income over $250,000, right? So like, you know, no, not taking away anyone's like house or car or whatever.
But AJ's in favor of those.
Just asking for modest sacrifices by wealthy Americans pays for healthcare for millions of people. Millions of people. By asking the top 1% of investment earners to give up 3% of their income, you can get health insurance for millions.
To be fair, it's not as if they give up 0% of their income. You're making it sound like
3%.
All they have to do is 3%. You know, right now they do 0, and if they're just willing to do 3%, they are.
I just mean a marginal increase. I mean fairly minor increases in the tax burdens of the extraordinarily wealthy. I saw someone had estimated that someone like Sheldon Adelson would save $500 billion in tax savings.
He doesn't have $500 billion.
$500 million, sorry. $500 million in tax savings over due to BICRA over 10 years, right? I mean, that's enough money to give health insurance to millions of people.
AJ, what do you think of the general argument that taking someone's private property, taking someone's money is a form of theft? What do you think about that? I'm sort of teasing you, but also because there's this idea that it's, of course, we should take money from other people to help people. You know what I mean? But what do you think of the sort of broad concept that every time you do take money from person A and to give to person B or person's B,000, if you will, B times 1,000, what do you think about the general morality of that? A forced taking from that person?
So Adam Smith says that the magistrate should be the best friend of the wealthy person, because if you're wealthy, the jealousies of those who are not wealthy are fairly extreme, and that without the protection of the magistrate, they're just going to take your money away. And so the entire, there's no like private property in a state of nature, right? Like there's
your argument that you should be happy giving up only 40% or 50% because if the poor people had it their way, it would be at 99%? I mean, is that your argument?
I mean, yeah. Right, but the entire framework on which your entire conception of private property depends is this idea that if taxation is theft, then like who's going to pay the magistrate to subjugate the proletariat to maintain your standard of living, right? I mean, at some point there's some level of taxation that is not theft, right? I mean, right? Like unless you're some sort of anarchist, you sort of think the idea of the magistrate keeping the proletariat under boot heels is a worthwhile use of your money.
Under
right?
boot heels, I mean, just preventing people from stealing each other's money is not exactly keeping the person that cannot steal under boot heels. Like, we're not keeping Don Jr. under boot heels because we say, Don, please don't, or Junior, sorry, please don't collude with Russia. I mean, come on.
But the point I'm making is that there's some level of taxation that isn't theft, right? And so paying for like a police force to
maybe it's all theft, but there's an acceptable amount of it.
But paying for a police force to shuffle disabled protesters outside of your Senate office is somehow a worthwhile use of tax money. But providing healthcare to millions and millions of people is beneath the dignity of man. Like I just don't buy the argument.
No. That's I don't think that's what anybody's saying. But I think I was wanting to get your thoughts on it, and I think I have them.
Was it helpful?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I really only wanted to talk about Don Jr., but we clearly got dragged into other topics.
All right. Do we want to talk about this David Brooks sandwich column?
No, I didn't read it, and I don't have any interest in reading it. It seems like the latest sort of uproar thing, which is beneath us, frankly.
Oh my God. So I got a text message after we started recording, and it was basically that I should mention this David Brooks sandwich thing so that you could defend him, and then I could sputter incoherently into the microphone, which does seem to be what's happening as we speak.
That's maybe we save it for another episode, unless you really want to talk about it. I'm trying to queue up my sidebar.
All right, Tom, you want to do your sidebar?
Sure, if you want.
All right, do it.
What's the point of sidebars in Donald Trump's America?
Tom, you sound like Jared Kushner right now.
So my sidebar is Sad Full House. And for those of you who have not heard of Sad Full House, it is a series of YouTube videos. And what they do on these YouTube videos is take the intro to Full House. You remember the intro to Full House? Then they splice in the saddest part of the episode. And then they play the outro to Full House. So
that's hilarious. Wait, I'm going to click on this.
Yeah, there's an example in the show notes of a sad Full House.
They're in a car. They're driving on a big bridge. Oh my God. Mary Kate or Ashley Olsen just asked where her mom is. And now everyone's really sad. Oh my God. Bob Saget is so sorry. Oh my God. Her mom died?
Yeah, dude.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was part of the canon. Oh my goodness. It's too sad. Tom, I wish you hadn't done that. I'm sad now.
Now the show's over. That sad Full House.
It was too sad.
Like living in Donald Trump's America.
Dude, that is so terrible. Like, I can't believe. It's so sad.
All right, Rich, what do you got?
So, we've learned a lot of things about the Trump family and Russia. So, one of those things is that Don Jr. once said that a bunch of their money, the majority of their money, their sales, come from Russia. This was like in some real estate development conference because a lot of Russians buy Trump properties, and maybe because Russia finances Trump. Who knows? But then also, in 2013, Don Sr., also known as the current president of the United States, had a Miss Universe pageant that was held in Moscow. And so while he was there, he befriended, I guess, a local real estate developer who also helped host the Miss Universe pageant, maybe. And so the son is a Russian pop star. And so my sidebar is that Russian pop star, Amin, I believe his name is, who is also the person that Don Jr. Was referred to, who was going to provide the Russian lawyer with the dirt on Hillary Clinton. Anyway, so it's this Russian pop star, and Donald Trump Sr. is in this music video.
This is nuts. This music's terrible.
Yeah. So let me try and find the point where Don Sr.'s in it.
It's the end. All the way at the end.
Is it all the way at the end? I can't find it. Hold on.
Yes, it's at 3:27.
Okay. So.
Oh my God, it's Donald Trump.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Whoa. Who makes a music video in which they're fired by Donald Trump? It's kind of funny.
I guess someone who really likes Donald Trump.
Anyway, he's the source. He's the guy that was was connecting Don Jr. with the Russian attorney, and his agent is Rob Goldstone. So these are names that weirdly and strangely will go down in American history. Like someone's going to write a book about this, and it's going to be this random Russian pop star that brought down the Trump administration.
All right, I got a good one.
What's your sidebar?
Wait, I have to turn off this horrible music video.
It was very bad, actually.
This is actually fairly old, but it was a really interesting article. There was an article in the New York Times shortly after, at the end of June, shortly after the UK election. Basically, the title of the article is "How Tinder Could Take Back the White House," and the article was a first-hand account of people who created a chatbot to use Tinder to help convince people to vote. And so they got people to lend them their Tinder profiles. Tinder is a website where it's not a website; it's an app on your phone, and you use it to swipe left or swipe right on people depending on how much you want to have sex with them. And then, so anyway, this bot swiped right on everybody. So they were trying to match to have a date with everybody, and then people would message them and say like, "Hey, you want to come back to my place?" And then the bot would say, "Well, are you liberal or conservative?" And then they like targeted the bot to be active, particularly in like swing districts, and they would just chat about politics. And the people who owned the original Tinder profiles could jump in and start talking as well. And so it seems that it's not clear how much evidence they have about how effective it was, but they basically like used a ton of automated social engineering to get liberal people to vote for Labor, or in certain districts to vote for whichever Liberal Party had the best chance of defeating the Tories. So it's like very interesting. It's a very interesting article. You should see their method, and round of applause.
Yeah, it was an interesting use of Tinder. You know what I mean? Who thought to use Tinder as an app for political activism? I honestly would have thought that would be the last thing anyone would think to use for political activism.
I wonder if it would scale.
They say they reached like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. It seems like it could scale pretty easily because it's automated. They said they needed 10 people to actually process and enroll people to get their Tinder account info and stuff. But once they had like suitable Tinder accounts, the whole thing is automated.
And I guess they could just create a bunch of fake Tinder accounts, couldn't they? With like, attractive people.
Well, no, the thing is that it was real Tinder accounts, right? So the people who own the Tinder accounts would always be monitoring the conversations and could jump in and participate and make
in case things got too liberal.
So here's I thought was like a really good point made by the article. Social media has also made canvassing more inclusive. Several people who volunteered with us said our bot allowed them to canvass despite physical or mental health conditions that prevented them from handing out leaflets. Natalie Wright, a disability activist and writer, said, "I could do it on my own time, on my own terms, as much or as little as I wanted. This reflects a bigger shift this election where politics has been made more accessible and relevant to people who are usually marginalized."
That is really cool.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
Did anyone find love?
People don't find love on Tinder. That's what Plenty of Fish is for. Have you ever heard of Plenty of Fish?
I have heard of it. Tom, didn't you use it at some point?
Nah.
No, Tom wouldn't use Plenty of Fish. It's specifically for Christians.
Oh, because of the fish logo. Makes sense. It's like me saying, Tom, did you use J-Date?
Yeah.
Probably not. Guys, I'm really trying to figure out whether I should get that skillet. That skillet from Amazon.
What skillet?
It's like 70% off. It's a preseasoned cast iron skillet by Utopia Kitchen. It's normally $100. It's only $30 because of Prime Day. Should I get it? Should I not get it?
Don't get anything from Prime Day.
Why?
Ugh.
Dude, that's...
Ruch,
yeah.
You should get...
What should I get, dude?
A ceramic Dutch oven.
Is that on sale for Prime Day?
I don't know. But I'm just telling you what you should get. Can I tell you why?
Why?
So ceramic Dutch ovens basically serve the same purpose as a skillet, so you can cook on top of the stove and put it in the oven as well, but they're a lot easier to clean.
No, I don't know. I don't have that kind of space in my house.
What are you talking about? Dude, you live in like an 8-bedroom mansion.
Dude, this isn't your house in New Hampshire that we're talking about.
Rich, your house is so big that you park your car under your bedroom.
Yeah, it's true.
Dude. Isn't that an indication of my house is so small?
No, it's very impressive.
Dude, there's a lot of good, like, if you order stuff with Alexa, there's some good deals, dude. If I order these Kind Bars on Alexa, instead of being $15, they'll be $10. And then on top of that, I will get $10 off because I used Alexa. So they will be free.
You should do it, dude.
Dude, this is so awesome.
Hold on. In case anyone is listening that has an Alexa, Alexa, order some Kind Bars.
No, here's the problem with Prime Day. Amazon shouldn't be encouraged to do Prime Day because it's like 90% annoying. Like, the deals are terrible. The deals are, like, mostly bad, and there's, like, one good deal every, like, 3 hours, and you have to sit there scrolling past all the crappy deals on Twitter just in case someone might tweet about Trump's, like, P-tape.
Dude, I'm not using Twitter anymore, as you guys know.
No, look, okay, here's what's on Prime Day right now. Here's what you can get. You can get a package of Greenie's regular size dog dental chews dog treats. Save $6.82.
AJ, there are people that really matters for, dude. Are you
can
kidding?
save 25% on the La La Land Blu-ray plus DVD plus digital HD download.
I saw that. That was an interesting either.
Oh, sorry. I spoke too soon. Never mind. It's actually amazing. You can save 20% off the iFetch interactive ball launcher for dogs. Launches mini tennis balls, small. It's only $91.99 on Amazon Prime Day. You're amazing. Amazing.
Dude, there are some great deals on this, like, specific ordering things through Alexa.
Ruch, can I interest you in saving $1.75 on the multi-pet Duckworth Duck 13-inch stuffed animal?
How did they do this? It's amazing. How did they do this?
Well, look.
I mean, like, so there are genuinely, like, good deals here. They're like, like the really fancy internet light switches that I got. Like, they have a huge discount on the starter kit, which actually, like, I kind of wish I had bought on Prime Day. But you have to scroll past, like, tons and tons of crap to get there.
Oh, I see the Smart Lighting Deluxe Starter Kit. That's $120. Is that good?
Yeah,
AJ,
I have that. I have it at my house. The Lutron light switches are very good.
Oh, dude, this grill looks amazing.
What about the PetSafe interactive laser cat toy?
Wait, guys, I need to tell you something important. Are you a bad enough dude to save $2.59 on Neutrogena Sunscreen Ultimate Ultra Sheer Stick SPF 70, 1.5 ounce?
No.
Oh,
I
hey,
started using sunscreen.
how about saving $6.11 on Mentos Gum Pure Fresh Mint 650 count pack?
I need some toothpaste.
But are you ready? Are you in a good place in your life to save $6 on 300 Mentos gums?
Ooh.
What would I do with all of them?
You would eat
Chew
them,
them.
Tom.
They're the fresh maker.
Tom, I think we should record Saturday's episode or Sunday's episode at your office, and then I can eat all your free snacks. Can you request? Can you request that whoever goes to your office to get those snacks kind of restock on stuff? Or
Oh, Ruch. Hey, Ruch, ask your if you say Lady in the Tube, order a Swingline stapler, you could save $2.65 on a Swingline stapler Optima 25 reduced effort full size 25 sheets capacity silver/black.
it's too many savings.
Ruch,
Too
unplug your
many.
headphones. I want to talk to your Alexa.
What's the best?
No, dude.
Alexa, order a sunshine bouquet. I'm going to go to bed. Is it time to go to bed? Are y'all going to talk about Bitcoin if I go to bed?
Actually, I was thinking, Tom, we actually get into the sort of the meat and potatoes of Bikra now that AJ's going to bed.
Tom, I really appreciate you being bored out of your mind while I talked about Bikra. It was very cathartic for me.